To the Stars,
To the
featuring
stars,
Outlaws
baby.
and Space Dandies and Space Races and
Space star. A
uh,
dandy in space is an outlaw in star,
and in our
baby.
hearts.
Yeah. And and really, maybe the real space race are the dandies we made along the way.
maybe the real space race is the one going on inside our hearts for all of you. Greetings, Space Dandies. Welcome to episode 78 of the Laser Comb Podcast, the show where we comb through random episodes of classic TV with a fine-tooth laser. I am, as always, Christopher Siege, one of your hosts.
And it's me, NeoCal. I'm here too.
Yes, we're both here. We're both ready to be dandies in space.
Well, you know what they say. A space race is a race in space, baby.
A race in space is dangerous, baby.
And also takes 14 hours. Because distances are big in space.
Yeah, space, very big place. 6 out of 10, too much emptiness.
6 out of 10. Wish the sights were better.
Right.
Needs more oxygen.
Needs more oxygen.
I'll give the Outlaw Star kudos for being like on the realistic end of like sci-fi.
Yes. And on that note, that's what we're talking about this week. As chosen by our longtime listener and patron, Jared, we're watching episode 10 of...
Race indeed.
Yeah. It's episode 10 of Outlaw Star, Gathering for the Space Race, which originally aired on March 12th of 1998 in Japan and January 26th of 2001 in North America.
Damn.
Yeah.
This has an 80s feel to it. Not in a bad way, but like it just feels like it came out earlier.
This feels like an anime from like a studio like Madhouse, which I mean that in a good way because like that tends to be the type of anime that I gravitate toward. I really like Madhouse as a studio. So what is Outlaw Star? It is
space western, baby.
It is Space Dandy 15 years before Space Dandy was a thing.
So Space Dandy clearly is inspired by this.
So when I was
Firefly too.
Yeah. This show predates Firefly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's like Firefly took notes of this quite literally. Including the character that's like the pilot chick. Excuse us, we've only watched one episode. That's what the podcast is about. But like the pilot chick who like interfaces with the AI in like the tank.
Right.
Her like being found like in a suitcase or like a science like thing is I feel like Firefly where some of the writers were fans of this show.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you there's probably more similarities if I were to watch the whole series.
So as I was watching it, the thought that I had very, very early into the episode was, wow, the people who like Space Dandy, or the people who made Space Dandy clearly liked this show.
Yeah.
Because this is Space Dandy without the like kind of self-aware, like zany humor.
Oh, Space Dandy is like he basically dies or travels into a different dimension or becomes God at the end of like every episode, and then it continues the next episode as if nothing happened. Like it even though they have like that similar air of being in a space opera, if you will,
Right.
they're very different in tone.
Hmm. So, near as I can figure, the Outlaw Star is the ship itself. That was kind of the impression that I got. The captain of the ship is this kind of cocksure, like Han Solo type named Gene.
Good old Gene Starwind. Yeah.
And he's got a kid sidekick who looks like the kid from Full Metal Alchemist. He has this weird blue-haired chick who interfaces with the ship, I guess, to pilot it. But the ship also seems to have an AI of its own.
And the AI seems pretty fucking sure of itself.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like,
a part later in the episode where she's asking the AI to like look her up on like the extranet or whatever they call it, and my immediate thought was, I'm like, she's basically Googling herself.
she's Googling her. She's Googling herself. Yeah, when they landed a planet, she's like, hey, can you look up stuff about me?
Yeah.
Presumably she has amnesia or something.
Something, yeah. She doesn't seem to know what her story is. And what's going on in the episode is we open with a voiceover narration, kind of basically explaining to us that a race in space is dangerous, baby.
Yeah. But in a more serious
Tone. Way. Yeah. And we find out pretty quick that Gene and the crew of the Outlaw Star want to enter this space race. But wouldn't you know it, it's going to be 150,000 space bucks, and they don't have it. And
yeah,
so...
Yeah. And they don't have that kind of money. They even meet with... There's a whole scene, far too long, where they meet with like some lady to discuss the ins and outs of applying for the race.
Yeah.
Very weird. It lingers on scenes that should just be 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she tells them that it's 150,000 space bucks, and Gene gets all mad. He's like, "What? I thought anyone could join. How is just a regular, like, everyday, like, swashbuckling pilot like me supposed to afford that?" And she's like, "Well, you could go get a sponsorship."
And
they're like,
everyone else does.
They're like, "Boah."
Huh? Oh, of course.
And so they go to get a sponsorship from some dude who clearly has like a megaton boner for Gene. Like,
oh right,
yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Tries to
like,
hug him.
It's pretty obvious right away that this dude is into Gene. And even
they don't have a good relationship.
And
sorry, they have an unbalanced relationship because it seems like he owes this guy money already.
Yeah. But this guy has the hots for him, so he's willing to put up with his shit, basically. And indeed, my suspicions about that, it was pretty obvious, like, watching the scene, that I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's into Gene. And then my suspicions were confirmed when they leave, when the dude's, like, butler or, like door guard or whatever talks about, like, him, the master's love for him.
Or, yeah, I missed that, like, the bodyguard or the doorman.
Yeah.
Or, like, whatever. Yeah, and the sponsor, he was like, you'll have to pay me back the 150,000 space bucks, plus 50,000. That's the trade-off. And he's like,
which is
the pool for winning is 400,000, which isn't that much.
Yeah, it's 400,000 space bucks, and they basically, if they win, they have to pay this dude half of it.
But they get to keep 200,000.
And I'm like,
but if they don't,
Gene, why don't you just let this guy suck your dick? Like, he clearly wants to,
right?
And then like you can probably keep the whole 400.
Gene. And it's like, but if we lose, we still need to give you 200,000. And he's like, that's right. And I'm like, oh, that's fair. And he's like, oh, but at the awards ceremony, you have to wear this. I've been preparing for this day. And this is when I laughed. A servant of his rolls in this like just mannequin bust of like clothes, right? And they pull off this sheet, and it's
I've been waiting years to see you in this, honey.
kind of
It's very
it's an
flamboyant.
unflattering, flamboyant, frilly, skin tight suit that he specifically wants Jean to wear. And on the back it has like the his logo or like something like that for sponsorship.
Yeah.
And Jean's like, "What? No way." And then his like little buddy is like, "Come on, man." And then Jean's like, "Okay, no problem." By the way, the English translation, like the dub, it's bad enough that it's funny.
Yeah,
like
it's not a
it's not
great dub.
great, but it's funny in how kind of bad it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're at
And
this like dinner party or something like that, and there's this weird like
oh, before the race, there's a dinner party. Right, right.
and this like weird this I guess she's like the one of the antagonists of the show, but she's like
Yeah,
some
that's what I got the feel of. But
she's
she's
some
low on her luck, so she needs to pay off a debt, and so she's a waitress.
yeah. She's like this imperial like bounty hunter or something, but she's like losing her shit.
Yeah,
I can't
so
even remember what about, but like she's just yeah, she's losing her shit and like even calls out the fact that she's like pitying herself.
yeah, was it Aisha or something like that?
Aisha, yeah, yeah. Although like the way it's spelled, I'm like it should be Aisha.
Should be I. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was right. Yeah, that was something that was bugging me while I was watching it because I always watch everything, and maybe this is just because I'm getting old, but like I always watch everything with subtitles on now.
Yeah, she's a cat girl.
Yeah.
And she's low on her luck, and she drops all of the champagne she's holding, and she's all like, "You son of a bitch. Let me at him, let me at him. I've been chasing this guy across the galaxy. Meow." And then like, guards like take her away, and the guy hosting it is like, "Tisk tisk, if you can't behave, um, you won't have a job." And I'm like, weird. And then there's a lot that happens off screen here and there. I guess she commandeers, kind of, yeah, an Imperial ship to join the race on
Yeah.
behalf of the Imperium or whatever thing she represents, to lay a trap for the
Gene.
protagonists, for Jean and the Outlaw Star.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is some wacky racist bullshit. And I'm on board.
I'm on board.
Like the idea
Outlaw
of getting
Star.
ahead in the race just to stop and lay a track is so fucking wacky races. Who's the villain in Wacky Races?
I don't know. I've never seen it.
Oh, it was one of those nostalgia. It was on what was it called? Like Teletoon, like retro or something like that, where it showed old cartoons, like
Right.
reruns of old cartoons. Dick Dastardly.
Dick Dastardly.
Yeah.
All right, I'm looking up Wacky Races now.
He's doing it. It's some Dick Dastardly stuff where it's like, I'll get ahead of everyone else. And instead of winning the race, I'll lay a trap for everyone. And I'm like, or you could just win the race. But winning the race isn't her point. She needs to, basically, she's ostracized by the,
Oh,
by
it's
her,
this.
like,
Yeah, I've seen this.
yeah, everybody knows what wacky races is, in kind of like in the fact that they can recognize.
Right.
And it was like kind of narrated over. It's like, oh geez, blah 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 is in like second place, and upcoming is like this, and in between like commercial breaks.
Right. I feel like it was, I don't know, like I feel like it was on like before or after Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. So I think when I was a kid, I just thought that it was part of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
That makes sense, because they all those Hanna-Barbera like shows kind of
Kind of
flow
look
together.
They all kind of look and feel the same.
They do. Yeah. And so yeah, Catgirl Dick Dastardly and two kind of like people that don't seem like they want to be there are helping her like out. They're like, oh geez, the Imperium says jump. I guess we jump.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a bunch of other like characters I never paid attention to.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other bullshit that goes on
Yeah.
while during the race. We find out that there's like a couple of planets that are like orbiting around one another, and Jean is like, "Well, what's the fastest way to go?" And like someone else is like, "Oh, well, we could go this way or we could go this way," and he keeps asking repeatedly. He's like, "Okay, yeah, that's fine, but what's the fastest way?" Oh, to just go right through them. And
Okay,
he's
so
like,
there's two planets orbiting each other in the path of the. So they have to hit checkpoints,
"Yeah,
right? Throughout a system. They need to fly through them like Star Fox. Uh,
yeah,"
um,
or
and
Superman 64.
uh, yeah, like Superman 64, everyone's hit title.
Everyone's favorite N64 game, Superman 64.
Yeah, I owned that at one point. I bought it for like $5 or $10, and it was
That
not
sounds
worth.
like $5 or $10 too much.
It clearly was. Um, and yeah, it's like, well, go vertical to avoid the orbits of these two like gas giants or planets or whatever that are in a binary orbit with each other, and everybody's hitting the checkpoint by going vertical through the
Yeah.
orbit. Yeah, and Gene's like, enough with the science mumbo jumbo. What's the fastest way? And they're like trying to dodge the orbits and flying right through it, but it's extremely dangerous. Let's
and
do it.
and Gene's like, "Ha
And well, gosh darn it, wouldn't you know it? When they do that, things go bad.
Things go bad, and they are about to be hit with space debris, and then to be continued.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Huh?
Son of a
For
son of a
fuck's
bitch.
sake!"
You know what's funny? When we were talking earlier, it's fun. When we were talking earlier, I heard in my head when that had ended, and I was like, son of a bitch. I heard Christopher's voice in my head say, for fuck's sake.
It
And
is a thing.
indeed,
It is a thing that I say a lot too.
yeah. And indeed, I was like, two-parter, is it? And
Yeah.
probably all of them say to be continued. But this one particular, like at the end of the next episode, it says to be continued. It's every episode is to be continued. But this one in particular felt like a two-parter. And gosh darn it, we had gotten stuck on two-parters so many times that we definitely watched the second part.
Yes.
And this is how it and this is what happens in the second part.
So I purchased this episode on iTunes for $2.99, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake! I did not feel compelled to spend another $2.99 to get to part two. Plus, that's not the assignment. So, um, I have no idea what happens from here. It could be a
Well,
fun. Now, here's a fun little thought experiment. What do you, without watching the next part of Outlaw Star in Space, Dandy? What do you suppose happens? Like how do you think the everything is wrapped up?
okay, so there's got to be an asteroid field or a debris field.
Yep.
Can we've played Star Fox, and we've even though it's in debris field or an asteroid field, there's this illusion that like, oh, like asteroids are like left and right, and you need to like dodge and fly through them. They're like thousands or hundreds of kilometers apart very often.
Mm-hmm.
The odds of just going in a straight line and hitting anything in an asteroid field are completely nil. But in sci-fi, you need to do evasive maneuvers and that kind of thing. So I'm guessing he outruns or outmaneuvers the cat girl imperial like ship. in like the asteroid field that they fly through.
Right.
Um, what would happen after that?
So here's what I like to imagine happen. Just as a bunch of the space debris is about to destroy them and the checkpoint that they're speeding toward, uh, all of a sudden the space debris is blown up by some green laser beams, and then we see Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon be like, "Woohoo!" And
Okay, so a dude overtakes them.
and so uh, Han Solo says to Gene, "You're all clear, kid. Now let's win this thing and go home." And so
And
they,
then they drift, sling, and right, he rides the drift. Anybody that knows anything about racing games knows that drift is real, right? And then after you build up drift for a few seconds, the mechanic where you pull ahead kicks in, right? And that
Gene,
slingshots Gene and the Outlaw Star.
and as they're like mid slingshot, Gene tells Full Metal Alchemist Boy to open up the glove box, and he does. Pulls out a can and says, "Wow, liquid Schwartz." And Gene's like, "Pour it into the gas tank." And so they pour it into the gas tank, and it gives them a massive like afterburn that just rockets them past everyone else in the race. Fox McCloud with his air wing shows up and takes out Empire
He
Cat Girl.
enters all range mode and
Does
has
a
a boss
barrel
battle with, yeah, does a
does
barrel roll.
does a barrel roll. Gene and the Outlaw Star win. They go back to pay 200 half of their 400,000 space bucks to Sponsor Man. And Sponsor Man compliments Gene on how fabulous he looks in the uniform that he made for him. And so Gene is like, "All right, Full Metal Alchemist Boy, leave us be." And in lieu of them having to pay the $150,000 sponsorship fee, they fuck.
So he gets to keep all of it.
He still has to pay the extra 50,000.
Oh, for the entry fee.
Yeah. He still has to pay the 50,000, but Sponsor Man is like, "No, no, no. This is worth 150,000 space bucks to me." And
And oh yeah, by the way, we forgot to mention there's like a tall, like traditionally dressed like Japanese woman. She goes and gambles, goes to a bathhouse. Kind of not part of the episode. I
I
assume
th-
she's an assassin.
I thought that was Pilot Lady.
No, this
Oh,
pilot lady and like black haired, like formal speaking woman. And
oh.
she's like, I'll have no part of this. Well, good luck. Yeah, there's two chicks and two dudes on the
I, I,
ship.
I legitimately thought they were the same character.
They're both on screen at the same time. Yeah, amnesia pilot chick is like,
Google
what,
girl, if you
Gene?
will.
Yeah, Gene, aren't you going to stop her? And he's like, nah, we'll let her like see the sights.
Okay. Well, uh, Cal, you just caught a random episode of an outlaw star in space is dangerous, baby. Would you tune in again?
I might, but it depends on how boring the Hanna-Barbera show that's on right before this was. And usually they're always boring compared in for modern tastes. For modern tastes. Hanna-Barbera cartoons are pretty fucking boring. I mean,
Mhm.
come on. You sat through like you sat through I was gonna say Yu-Gi-Oh! Jesus. Um why can't I remember Yogi? Like Yogi Bear, right? Every episode was the same, right?
I really liked Yogi Bear when I was really, really young. I have no nostalgia for it whatsoever.
And that's what I mean, right? And so like I don't have nostalgia for this, so I can't like say, oh yeah, I'm gonna get into it and like watch the whole thing. But because I can see the seeds of sci-fi that influence stuff like Firefly, that influence stuff like Space Dandy. Like Space Dandy's ship looks like this Outlaw star, except I think Space Dandy's ship is yellow. Um, well, I mean, I guess all cool spaceships are kind of phallic, and it's red because red's the fastest color. I'll give it that. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know. I would like to say yes, but it feels very. I can only remember like 3 scenes from the episode. The pacing is weird, so
Yeah,
I can't in good faith say that I would.
that's
I'm
fair.
glad that I know it exists and the premise of it, and I might go back and check out like episode 1 or 2 or whatever. But I got to be honest to anyone like listening and our dear patron Jared. I don't know if it's good background anime. I'll give it that.
All right, there it is.
How about you?
No,
Would you tune in next week?
no.
There we go. I have a long, convoluted way of saying no, and Christopher just says no.
No, there's nothing particularly wrong with the show, but
Yeah.
I think its biggest sin, honestly, is that it just really didn't leave an impression on me.
Mm. And it could be one of those the famous. Oh, you guys didn't land on a good one.
I know
Such as the business,
this is basically we must have landed on a bad episode. The
the
podcast.
podcast.
The show is great. Show X is great. I swear, you just landed on a bad episode.
Guys, you guys landed on the worst Code Lyoko episode.
Yeah, that's yeah. No, I'm sorry, Jared. I wanted to like it. I mean, I go into all of these wanting to like them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's the whole like one of us likes anime a little bit more than the other.
Yeah.
I feel like there's 3 tiers of people that like anime. There's the people that like all anime and have watched everything.
Yeah.
There's like the me where I've watched some, I haven't watched all anime. But I'm open to it and I've watched a lot compared to the normies, right? And then there's the people that like anime, but like you like anime movies, and you like you had said earlier, like Perfect Blue, right?
Yeah.
Like adult, Ghost in the Shell, adult like cinematic experiences. And maybe
Yeah.
we're just not weeb enough. Maybe we just don't like anime enough.
With me, like basically, like if it
Well, you
if
like
it would
the
be
childish like food on fighters. You thought that was
generally
hilarious.
that was really funny. Generally, with me, if this if the story would work as a live action film, like just as well, like something like Perfect Blue would work just fine as a live action film.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So basically, like if it's just a good story, like not like what I'm trying to say is like if the story if like the story is just good on its own merits, not because it's an anime, like then that's something I'll tend to gravitate toward. But I'm not gonna watch anime just to watch anime. I was married
I
to a
never
woman like
watched the
that.
live. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never watched the live action Ghost in the Shell.
It's not as bad as people made it out to be, but it's also not great.
Yeah, I figured it was just kind of okay.
Honestly, I think they should have just done a one-for-one adaptation of the anime.
Just like copied it over.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, yeah, like you've got all the licenses. Like, why'd you make the story bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And there was accusations of like whitewashing because Major Kusanagi was played by Scarlett Johansson, and the movie like makes kind of factor spoilers, I guess, but like later in the movie, like it and I feel like this is something that was done to address the accusations of whitewashing, but like the movie addresses it in a way where it's like, oh, her ghost brain in Major Kusanagi's like cyborg body was actually like came from the body of like a living like Japanese woman. And I'm like, eh,
Cool story, bro.
cool. You probably should have just,
Not said
cast a
that.
Japanese woman as Major Kusanagi to begin with.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of there's no shortage of great Japanese actors out there. So, or even Japanese
Yeah.
American actors. Like, anyway,
What we're saying is Outlaw Star, you um you flew through space so that movies like Redline and shows like Space Dandy could soar. Like I can see the influence there.
like Icarus, Outlaw Star, you flew too close to the sun.
Which sun? Which star? We'll
Doesn't
never
matter.
know. Sirius B. There you go.
Maybe we would have found out in part two,
Maybe.
but we'll never know. Or at least I'll
Yeah.
never know. I'll probably never think about it again either. Anyway, that was episode 78 of the Lasercomb podcast. Best way to support the show is to go to patreon.com/lasercomb, LAZORCOMB, where beginning with the $5 tier, you get our Patreon exclusive podcast, the Super Lasercomb Patreon Super Show, commentary tracks, and much like Jared, the ability to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on this very podcast. So if you want to get in on that, go to patreon.com/lasercomb. Join our Discord. Best way to interact with us. I'm probably not really going to plug social media anymore other than that because I barely use it.
Yeah. I like open up Facebook like once a week, and then it's never anything that I care about. I'm like, oh, I missed this person's birthday. Whatever. And then I close it. And then I'm like, what is I guess Twitter is still a thing. Some people are really trying, and I'm like, I can't, man.
Yeah.
We go back and forth, but it's like whatever. Like most of the people that found us because they were like looking for some niche thing, or we popped up in the algorithm or something. Like,
Right.
that's not true. There's some people on Twitter. I don't know, man. I don't know. Find us on the Discord. We actually reply and like regularly interact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to the Discord. As always, link in the description. Yeah.
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 I'm pretty tired and winded because I have a broken rib right now. And, well, as I'm discovering today, talking for long periods of time is actually exhausting when you have
Are you
a broken
saying
rib.
moving your diaphragm over and over again over your broken ribs is exhausting?
It's exhausting. I think I
Look
am.
at this guy. The lazy millennials can't even talk for 2 hours straight.
Right. Oh, I know. And normally,
Back
like,
in my day, I talked for 25 hours a day uphill. The snow.
I know. And normally,
Nice.
like, we're recording for like at least 3 or 4 hours every week, but I'm just tired. We'll be back next time with episode 79 of the Lasercomb podcast, where we're going to be. We have a new patron, the man who calls himself. I assume he's a man, but if you aren't,
The being who
if you
calls
aren't, I
themselves.
apologize. The human who calls themselves Vampiro.
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 What a
2K21 on social media. They just joined the Patreon recently, so we're
Hell
gonna.
yeah, brother.
And they pitched us a show called The Dresden Files.
No shit.
From 2007.
I knew that it existed. I never watched it.
My ex was a fan of the books, so that's what I know of it. I didn't even know there was a TV series
I've read
until
a couple of ye old books. Oh, I still have a couple books that I need to give back to a certain someone.
hmm. So to figure out which episode we're gonna watch, I'm gonna hit screen share. Share?
Hooray!
Haha! It worked. I'm doing a multi-monitor setup once again, so
Oh, look at this fancy guy.
yeah, I know, right?
The
Cut.
Boone identity.
12 episodes. So to the old random number generator, one episode between 1 and 12. If it lands on 12, I'm re-rolling. 10. Wow, we just did an episode 10.
Coincidence? I think so. Um,
What about Bob? Harry's latest lover sneaks out of his place with Bob's skull and delivers it to Dresden's uncle, Justin Morningway, who died by Dresden's own hand 5 years ago. Dresden learns that death isn't all it's cracked up to be, especially where his uncle is concerned.
huh.
Huh.
I know who Bob is.
Well, that made about as much sense to me as when I read the episode description for Captain Durka Returns. Anyway, we'll be back next time with that. And until then, I've been The Siege, one of your hosts.
And I'm NeoCal, your other host.
Thanks for listening. We will space dandy you next time.